is the Canon R5 worth buying anymore? In my humble opinion, so what was arguably the biggest camera released last year was the Canon R5, which is what this video is being filmed with, by the way. Everyone was talking about it. It was gonna record 8K, it could do all these crazy photo features, like everyone was excited for it. But then it came out and things weren't quite as good as we expected they were gonna be. Obviously, the number one thing that was talked about for months, and people still give Canon crap for it, is the overheating issue. It also has a newer video codec, which makes it even harder to even edit those videos in Premiere Pro, Final Cut, you name it. Now I'm gonna give an honest review of my experience with using the Canon R5 for the last 8 months. And a disclaimer, this is not a comprehensive review or anything. I'm not gonna go into depth on all the different features and stuff and how they compare to other cameras. This has just been my personal experience of using the Canon R5 for the last 8 months. Now, why did I get this camera? Before I had the Canon R5, I was using the Canon 5D Mark IV, and that was an amazing photography camera. And while it wasn't known for the video features, I was able to record some video projects with it and make some money. But there came a point where I was getting more frustrated with how the video looked when I was editing it. It was just not good. So I needed a new video camera, but also still needed to keep doing photography. And that's where the Canon R5 came in for me personally. Now, I knew about the overheating issues, but I was like, screw it, I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. Now, after using it for 8 months, here's what I think about the photography. Photography is freaking incredible. Like probably the best photography camera that Canon has ever made. It has amazing autofocus and eye tracking. The photos are incredibly sharp since it's a 45 megapixel sensor. The colors look so good right out of camera, and you can edit them to look even better with your own styles. The dynamic range is a little bit better than the 5D, and the amount of photos you can take when you put it on high frame rate mode is crazy. Hey, it's Future Connor from my iPhone. I'm gonna show you how many photos the R5 can take on the fastest shooting mode, the electronic shutter, in just a couple seconds. All right, you ready for this? I'm gonna click the shutter and we're gonna see how many photos it can take. All right, 3, 2, 1. How many photos do you think that was? I'll give you a second to guess. That took 17 photos in just that short time that I had my finger on the trigger. That's pretty insane. Now, with all this being said about the Canon R5, it honestly wasn't dramatically different from the photos I was getting with my 5D Mark IV. Now sure, there were a few more features that made it nicer to use, like that high frame rate. You know, if I needed to get some action shots or some really high speed subject, I can use it. I'll get great photos with the high frame rate mode. But the photos themselves really don't look too much better than the 5D Mark IV. Maybe they're a little sharper on the R5, but you know, if you're looking at photos mostly on a phone screen anyway, 45 megapixels versus whatever it was on the 5D 24, it's really not a big difference just looking on a phone screen. If I had just been upgrading to the R5 for the photography though, and not to mention I had to change lens systems, which cost, you know, a lot of money in itself, I honestly would have been disappointed. That being said, it's still great for photography. It's reliable on the photography side, which I really appreciate. But for me, the upgrade for photography really wasn't that dramatic. Now let's talk about the video. Upgrading from the 5D Mark IV to the R5 for video, night and day difference. The 4K on the R5 is beautiful and it's usable. I never shoot 8K personally because it takes up so much memory. 8K really isn't standard yet. It's super crazy hard to edit with. I never shoot 8K, but it's nice to have that option. The 120 FPS is buttery smooth, like, whoa, it looks so good. C-Log allows for some amazing color grades. I just shoot in the smallest file size format and I can still get some really good color grades just with that, using C-Log. And lastly, that flip out screen is clutch for just even photography. It helps a lot for positioning shots. When you're using the gimbal doing video, you know, you can turn that screen and still see where you're pointing the camera if you're holding the gimbal at a different angle. Flip screen has been great just by itself. But again, we come up with those big issues that the R5 is known for. It's overheated on me in moments where I need it not to overheat, and that codec has made editing almost a nightmare. I was filming my cousin's wedding back in June, and I filmed pretty much the whole wedding in 4K 60 on the R5. And there were a few moments where I was filming the before scenes where it was getting close to overheating, but I had some time to let it cool down, so it wasn't a big issue. When it came time for the ceremony though, it was being hosted outdoors in the Northern Virginia heat. I was stressing out not only because I was the only one filming, so any footage I got was gonna have to come from my camera, but also it was overheating right at the very end of the wedding when the vows were being made, when the first kiss happened. It wasn't good, wasn't a good situation. Thankfully, I was filming the wedding for my cousin, not a client. I was filming it for free, there was no money involved. It wasn't a big deal if I screwed up because they didn't even ask for the video. It was something I offered. But man, if I had been working for a client, yeah, that's a no-go. I found that after filming enough with this camera that it will overheat pretty much once you go to 4K 60 or higher quality after a certain amount of time. Doesn't matter if you're indoors or outdoors. I've been able to record with 4K 24 and it doesn't overheat over a long period of time. I was filming another wedding recently and I just had it going for at least 15 minutes. No overheating issues. Now, obviously, some people are gonna need to record longer than 15 minutes at a time, and if that's the case, well, we'll get to that in a minute. As for the editing side with the Canon R5 files, the only way I've been able to work around the tougher to read codec is to make proxy files when I'm using Premiere Pro. That allows me to make a smaller file size, edit that on the timeline, and then it'll export with the full quality videos at the end. But it takes forever to make proxy files out of, 4K 60, 4K 120 video files. You're gonna waste an hour just waiting to get your proxy files made sometimes, or longer. Now, I actually recently just got the M1 MacBook Pro. This is the 13-inch model. They don't have the 16-inch out yet, but it's got the M1 chip, which is from Apple, and it has really improved my editing workflow because that M1 chip can read the codec on the Canon R5 a lot better than my iMac, which you see right here. And it just doesn't do well with the Canon R5 video files. Now, with all those things that I just discussed, the big question is the Canon R5 worth buying anymore? And in my humble opinion, I don't think so. Unless you're like a sports action professional photographer who needs super high frame rate photography to catch, as many photos as possible of a fast moving subject, I wouldn't recommend the R5 for you. If you're photography focused, you don't shoot much video, you would be very well off with just getting the Canon R6 or the EOS R, because those cameras take great photos. They still have very high frame rates. You can put the RF glass on them, which is amazing lenses. Like, these lenses are insanely good. And you're gonna save a lot of money getting the R6 versus, the $3,900 price tag for the R5. Now, if you're someone who's more just into video, you're video first, and you're really serious about it, avoid this camera like the plague. You're better off getting another camera brand, maybe getting the 1DX Mark III if you still have EF glass. Just don't get the R5. It's not reliable for video at all, sadly. It looks great. I mean, again, I'm filming this video with it. It looks incredible. But if you're on a shoot and you're not 100% sure your camera's gonna make it through, you're just gonna be more stressed than you need to be. But hey, all this is just my opinion. If you disagree, if you agree, wanna add more things that I missed in this video about the R5, let me know in the comments. And please leave a like on this video so other people can find it and watch it. I only got 130 something subscribers. It's hard out here, y'all. It's really hard starting on YouTube from nothing. And since you've made it this far into this video, why don't you just, stick around and watch another one? Got one right here for you. Just click on it. That's it, right there.